Hey, what's happening, guys? Thank you for tuning into Rules for Rebels. Gonna be doing a little something different today. I'm sure you guys have all heard the story about the two black gentlemen who were in a Starbucks waiting to meet a friend, were asked to leave, wound up being arrested. What is his name? Charles Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, issued them a personal apology. And a couple days following that, they announced that May 29th, Starbucks is going to be shutting down all stores for like a diversity training afternoon or something like that, or anti-racism afternoon, whatever it may be. So I was curious. I just thought we'd kind of discuss this in the comment section below. I was curious, do you guys think this is a big, or do you guys think this is a good PR move, in that we're sensitive and we appreciate all people? Or do you think this is kind of like political correctness taken to the extreme and kind of ridiculous? What's your thoughts? I was kind of more interested in coming at this from the business side of things, since this is a business channel. But you know, if you guys want to kind of comment on the whole story and things like that, feel free to do so as well. I'll share a little bit of my thoughts on it. Let's be sure to keep things civil in the comment section. Normally I try to stay away from, you know, like race and more controversial issues, but I think this is interesting from a business perspective. So I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts. Figured we'd make a video on it. So for anybody who's not really up to date on the story, and again, the details are kind of cloudy, I tried reading a number of articles to kind of get a grasp of what the situation was. And like, really, two guys refused to leave. They were arrested. It's because they're black. Like, that's really all the articles tell. We don't really hear like the interaction, how things went down, a play-by-play. That's really not out there. So, you know, we just kind of have to take the information that we have to kind of best piece this together. And I was actually talking, there's a bagel shop next to my office, and I'm friends with the guy who works there, and we always talk while he's getting me my bagel in the afternoon. So we were kind of chatting a little bit, and I thought it was interesting. He had a little bit of a different take. Even as a business owner, he had a little bit of a different take on it than I did. So here's what the story is for any of you guys who missed it. So two African-American gentlemen are in a Starbucks in Philadelphia waiting to meet a friend. There was something was mentioned about them asking to use the restroom. And I guess they were told the restroom's only for paying customers, and then they were asked to leave because they were sitting in the Starbucks and hadn't purchased a drink. So apparently they asked them to leave. They refused to leave. The manager called the police. The police showed up, asked them to leave. They refused to leave, so they wound up being arrested. Right off the bat, I'm going to say I think everybody across the board handled this very poorly. I think the Starbucks employee or manager handled it poorly. I think the two gentlemen who were involved, I don't think they're victims. I think they handled it poorly. And I think the police handled it poorly. And here's kind of where I think this is more an issue of bad customer service and treating customers poorly, more so than it is an issue of racism. Although we don't know what's in the manager's heart. You know, would she have asked a white guy to leave, a white guy in a business attire, like she would have asked these black gentlemen to leave? You know, that's something that we don't know, and we can't really know. But, you know, the guy in the bagel shop I was talking to, he said, people come in here all the time. They ask if they can charge their phone. They sit here. He's like, I don't tell anybody to leave. And I said, well, that's because you're a nice guy. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you know, I can understand where a business is coming from, that their building and the seats and the bathroom are for paying customers. You know, here in Chicago, pretty much every single gas station, every single fast food restaurant, every coffee shop, the bathrooms are locked. If you want to use a restroom, you have to go up and ask for a key, and all of them have a sign right on the front door saying that the restroom is for paying customers only. A lot of restaurants in Chicago have signs, you know, if you want to sit here, there's a drink minimum, or you have to order something, you know, this is for customers only. So that's not really a black or white thing. That's just, you know, in urban environments, in cities and things like that, they tend to be more strict. You know, I can walk into a Starbucks in the suburb, walk into the bathroom, you know, take a pee and leave, and nobody's going to say anything to me. But, you know, in the city, because there's homeless people, because you tend to have more drug addicts and stuff who will use public restrooms to shoot up or whatever else, they tend to be a little bit more guarded. And I think it's kind of the same thing as, like, you know, we ourselves handle ourselves differently in the city and the suburbs. Like, I'm not a big drinker, but I mean, back when I was a drinker, like, I would get hammered out in the suburbs and stumble home, and I wouldn't think twice about it. I wouldn't do that in the city just because it's a different environment, right? It's not as safe. And so I think restaurants and businesses kind of handle things the same way. So I I think the Starbucks employees handled this poorly. I don't think it's very good customer service. I get the refusing the bathroom. I mean, it's a stupid policy. It's annoying. I've had to pee in a lot of alleys in Chicago because I can't use a bathroom someplace, or I've had to go in and buy a coffee or buy a scone or whatever else just to use a place's bathroom. So I do think that's annoying, but again, I get it. As far as asking people to leave, I mean, it really didn't need to go where it went to. All she had to say was, are you guys going to order a drink? If not, you guys need to move on. Oh, we're just waiting for a friend. Okay, sorry to bother you. Like, she didn't need to take it to the next level. So Starbucks employee was wrong right off the bat for kind of escalating this situation. However, private businesses do have the right to refuse service to people. Private businesses do have the right to ask people to leave. And if you're asked to leave, just get up and leave. Like, fuck that place. Why do you want to be there anyways? But anyhow, we're waiting for a friend. We're not going to leave. Okay, she calls the police. I know Starbucks has said, like, oh, that was a huge mistake, her calling the police. Our policy guidebook says only call the police for disturbances and threatening situations. Well, in this day and age, people are crazy. Isn't everyone telling us, like, after the Boston bombing and everything else, like, if you see something, say something, don't sweep things under the rug, take everything seriously. People are crazy these days. Situations do escalate. So rather than a Starbucks manager potentially getting into a confrontation with somebody, I do think maybe calling the police and letting, an unbiased third party resolve the situation, maybe not a terrible move there. So the police show up. The police tell these guys, they want you to leave, you guys have to leave. Well, we're refusing to leave. Here's where those guys screwed up. I don't know if it's pride or, whatever it is, but when the police ask you to do something, fucking do it. We see, there are a lot of unjustified shootings and things like that with the police, but at the end of the day, most of these things where people got shot, don't reach for your belt, don't reach for your belt, don't reach for your belt. And somebody reaches for their belt and they get shot, and it's like, have some common sense. I don't understand what it's like to be an African American, but I get pulled over. I carry a gun, so when I get pulled over, my hands are on the wheel. My concealed carry card is in my wallet. Officer, let me know what you want. If I'm asked to get out of the car, I get out of the car. You're not going to win against the police. The police have all the power. The police have power in numbers, right? Like if you might be able to beat up one cop, but you're not going to beat up the 10 other ones they call. At the end of the day, if you get into a confrontation with the police, listen to them, do what they say, and if you feel you've been mistreated, if you feel you've been abused, get a badge number, call up after the fact, after you're safe and away from the situation. Call up, file a report, call the state's attorney, call the media, if you feel you've been slighted, bring your issue to somebody's attention. But when a police officer is asking you to do something, that's not the time to get combative. That's not the time to ignore their orders. Like, listen to what the cops have to say. If the cops tell you to do something, to go somewhere, do it and file your complaint later. So I think that's where the guys went wrong. And as far as the police, a lot of people are getting upset with the police, and I think if you're going to be upset with somebody, be upset with Starbucks, not the cops. But, if the cops are asked to get somebody out of a private establishment, like, they have to show up and get them out of the private establishment. I would hope that the cops, and the thing's on video, I forget what they said, but if I were a cop showing up, I'd be like, look, man, I do not want to arrest you guys. This is a stupid, trivial situation. Please just leave here. I don't want to take you down to jail. I don't want to do the paperwork. This isn't worth having an arrest on your record. Call corporate, just leave. Go call Starbucks corporate, call the news, do whatever you want to do. Please don't make me arrest you. So I think across the board, everybody handled the situation very, very poorly. As far as, like, if this was racist, as far as I've heard, nothing like overtly racist was said. I think the bigger issue, like I said before, and it's something that none of us can know, is if a white gentleman in a business suit went and sat down in Starbucks, would she have asked him to leave like she left these guys to leave? And also, would she have given him 5 or 10 minutes to sit there before she said something, whereas maybe she asked these guys to leave right away? From what I can tell from the situation, it seems like if they had just gone and sat down, I don't know if anything would have been said. When they went up and asked for the restroom key, I'm guessing they were like, I didn't see you come through line and order something. You have to be a paying customer. And then if you go and sit back down, it's like, okay, well, now you've brought it to my attention that you're not ordering something. Are you just sitting in here? And again, a Starbucks in the suburbs is completely different from a Starbucks like in the city. They tend to be a little bit stricter with things in the city. So that's kind of some of my thoughts about the situation. I was talking to somebody on Steam, and they brought up an interesting topic. They said, they said coffee shops, you know, like they kind of created this business model where they've created a lounge, come hang out, buy a coffee, and stay for 6 hours using our Wi-Fi. And then they want to get mad at people after the fact for coming and hanging out and using their Wi-Fi. And I remember a few years ago, a couple coffee shops near me closed. And I remember I even read a couple articles in like Business Insider or something like that about how coffee shops were struggling because people do, like people will, you know, especially people who are self-employed or people who work from home, they want to get it out of the house. They go to a Starbucks or a Caribou or a Dunkin' Donuts. They buy one coffee in the morning and they'll sit there for the next 6 or 8 hours, you know, taking up a seat, taking up a power outlet. And really all the business is getting out of them is maybe $2 for a cup of coffee. So I have noticed a couple coffee shops by me have started doing like kind of a policy or a program where when you buy a coffee, there's a ticket on your receipt. You plug that into the Wi-Fi. And it'll give you 2 or 3 hours of Wi-Fi time. And after that, your code doesn't work anymore. And if you want another 2 or 3 hours of Wi-Fi, you have to go back up and buy another item. So I thought that's kind of interesting. A lot of people I talked to kind of like this idea. There's a couple bars, actually one particular bar near me, and I thought they had kind of a cool concept. Like, whereas most bars are more social places and louder places, I have this one particular bar by me, and if you go there and sit down, everybody's on laptops, like even happy hour. Everybody, I mean, people bring in their laptop and do work. People bring in books and read. So it's almost like a coffee shop atmosphere, but a bar. And I think that's actually kind of a better business model in terms of profitability, because I could see somebody going to a bar after work and working on their laptop, reading a book. And yeah, you might get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 beers. You might get an appetizer. They're actually getting some money out of you. But at a coffee shop, I mean, how many people are going to get 6 coffees, a scone, and a breakfast sandwich? Like, not very many. So, you know, coffee shop just kind of lends itself to people hanging out, not spending money. But that's really an issue totally different than this whole Starbucks thing. But yeah, that's my take on it. I think it was handled kind of poorly across the board. I do think this shutting down all the stores for an afternoon of kumbaya, let's all be one, we are the world, I think that's, you know, I get it. It's probably a good PR move. Like, we're living in this really, really PC society. So if like somebody makes a mistake, like, oh my gosh, we have to all sit down and hold hands. Really, I think it's pretty fucking stupid. Like, nobody likes diversity. Nobody likes meetings, period. But especially nobody likes fucking diversity meetings. People who aren't racist don't need them and don't want to sit through them. People who are racist, sitting through a 3 or 4 hour diversity meeting isn't going to change their views and isn't going to make them a good person. So again, the thing's just really kind of fucking pointless. I've seen a few people discussing online. A lot of people are like, oh, I think Dunkin' Donuts really going to take off because Starbucks is, you know, going to get a bad reputation for this and things like that. Starbucks, you know, I want to bring up another issue too. So a lot of people are like, boycott Starbucks, fuck Starbucks. You're really going to hold an entire corporation responsible for the actions of one employee? Like, you know, retail employees, fast food workers, even baristas, even though it's a little bit of a nicer job, they're minimum wage employees. A lot of times they're younger. We can't always expect them, you know, even though as a company your employees do represent you, I also don't think it's fair to hold a company responsible for what one employee does. You know, I don't know if you guys ever watch World Star Hip Hop, but World Star Hip Hop, there are like, I was just watching one the other day where this guy at like a Singular Wireless was like screaming at this Indian guy, telling him to get the fuck out of the store and this, that, and the other. And you don't see everybody like boycotting Singular Wireless or whatever. So I think it's kind of unfair to hold the entire corporation responsible or call Starbucks as a whole racist over the actions of one employee that I don't think we can definitively say was even racism. I think that's really kind of unfair. Starbucks, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the company, but, you know, I believe they offer benefits to part-time employees. They do a lot of charity work. There was a book called Starbucks Saved My Life about a guy who, I believe, got a job there and it paid for like health insurance. Excuse me. Well, he was like battling cancer or something like that. So, you know, the little bit I know about Starbucks, they are probably more of a friendly company than a lot of other companies out there. They're actually a very liberal company as well. So for people to like call them racist and stuff seems kind of crazy to me. And I'm really not surprised that Starbucks is having this like diversity day. And I've seen a couple people online like, oh, this makes me not want to do business with Starbucks just because, like, you know, they're kind of, I don't know if I want to say caving, but they're kind of like playing into this whole like politically correct bullshit that's going on in the way that society is. And a lot of people would like, you know, have them issue an apology, call it a day, and you know, get the fuck over it. Like, you know, I almost don't want to go to Starbucks because they are doing this. And then you probably have other people who probably think it is a good PR move and they will go there. But yeah, it's just kind of a rambling video about that whole incident. I think it's unfortunate. I think racism is terrible. I think everybody should be treated with dignity and respect. And if that wasn't the case here, yeah, then Starbucks fucked up. But yeah, from what I've seen, the details on this whole thing are pretty murky. I can't tell from what I've heard, is it overtly racism? And even if it is, we have no way of like truly knowing how, you know, would she have done the same thing to a white guy? So I mean, more than anything, I think it's poor customer service on Starbucks' part, and I think it was handled poorly by everybody involved. Starbucks, the cops probably least of all of anybody, and also the two gentlemen involved. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about it. Drop a comment in the comment section below. Again, you can comment on the situation as a whole, or if you want to kind of comment on the business aspect. Is this going to hurt them? Is this going to hurt their stock price? Any of that type of stuff. Is this a good PR move? Drop a comment in the comment section below. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button below. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.